So now, ladies and gentlemen, live and in colour, it's Mr. Wayne Lovejuice.
The other day I produced a Louis, had a chat with an interesting chappie who said that the YouTube algorithms really aren't that happy. If a channel only broadcasts once a week, so we decided we could Xtra whenever we've got a piece of news in our new book on the track Xtra.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of On the Track Xtra. My name's John Downs. I'm the director of an organisation called the Centre for Fortean Zoology, which is, we believe, the longest standing, the most popular, and, we like to think, the best mystery animal research group in the English-speaking world. This is a show which we do every Wednesday evening, which is a adjunct to the main show which goes up on Saturday afternoons, and it is full of stuff about hard science, weird shit and surreality, and I'm not going to tell you all about what surreality is now because you probably already know. What I am going to do is to talk to you about wild dogs, because they are a subject that has fascinated me for years, and the cryptozoology of the dog family is, I believe, one of the most interesting and exciting branches of cryptozoology, and sadly often overlooked. So first of all, over to my old friend Richard Muirhead. So Richard, tell us about what happened when you were in Hungary. I think it was in 2009.
Yeah. Well, the whole purpose of the trip to Hungary was to observe butterfly behaviour in the Xtra National Park of northern Hungary. And there were a group of about 15 of us went down from Kent, drove through Europe, stayed in a hostel in this national park for 2 weeks, and towards the end of the trip I asked one of the local scientists if he knew anything about the reed wolf or the type of jackal or wolf that was supposed to have become extinct at the beginning of the 20th century. But it's like a long-lost cryptid. It's a cryptid that's been basically overlooked by the cryptozoological community, being more in favour of Bigfoot, Loch Ness Monster, and so on. But apparently, as of 2009, there were still 75 of these reed wolves left.
Golly. And what did he say they were? Did he say they were wolves or what?
I think he used the word wolf. Yeah, I don't think he referred to them as jackals, but if you look online, some websites do refer to them as jackals.
I found one of Richard's original interviews with one of the park rangers, in which Richard, assuming that these creatures actually are jackals, questions him about the size and colour of them.
Oh yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah, right. So far as a naturalist, the trip had been fascinating, but until now there had been nothing of cryptozoological importance, but that was about to change. At the beginning of the 20th century, there was an animal in this part of Hungary called the reed wolf. It was allegedly a small race of the grey wolf, smaller and darker. It had been hunted to extinction by the time of the First World War. Now it appeared that jackals had colonised the same marshes. They too were darker than they should be, and the locals called them reed wolves. Okay, Adam,
Yes.
can you tell me about the appearance and length and height of the jackal,
Yeah.
please?
Length 60 or 105 centimeters.
Yeah. And how high?
Height 40, 45.
40, okay. It's red colour.
Yes.
Okay. And are any other photographs or skin available from Hunter?
Yes.
Okay. And how many of these jackals are in Hungary, do you think?
I don't know. 2002 years.
Yeah.
Hunting shows.
Yeah.
Jackal is number 75.
75 individual.
Yes.
Hello.
But the more common, the more popular term is reed wolf.
And did you say anything about had they been hunted? Had they been photographed?
Yes, they had been hunted, and there were skins available. Or skins had been collected. I don't know how many of them. I don't know, not a great deal, but there were some physical remains in collections of the reed wolf.
Well, there are at least 2 remaining 19th or very early 20th century specimens of reed wolves in the Natural History Museum in Budapest.
Right.
And the thing to do would be to go back to Aglatec National Park, try and secure some of these pelts that have been hunted.
Yeah.
It's not, before anybody starts getting, "Wah!" It's not a matter of us going and shooting a specimen. It's a matter of us going and buying the pelt of one that's already been shot from a local hunter, as well as, of course, using trail cams to try and get pictures of them, and then comparing the hairs of the 21st century specimens with the hairs of the 19th century specimens and seeing if they're the same thing. Did they say anything about the way that the reed wolves are fitting into the local ecosystem?
I didn't ask that question, so I don't know, but there is a great deal of wildlife down there in the national park area, and there's a lot of wooded valleys and wooded areas where it could hide out.
And what sort of prey or potential prey species are there?
There are, I'm not sure, martins. I presume there are deer.
Wild boar?
Yes, I think so. Yeah. So there is prey species there.
It's one of the great tragedies, I believe, of cryptozoology that it is so obsessed with the science fiction-y creatures, the King Kong-like giant apes, and the surviving dinosaurs, and the great lake monsters which come out and attack people out of the mist, that it ignores some of the far more likely and just as interesting creatures on our own doorstep, because this is right in the middle of Europe. It's only basically a few hundred miles away from here. How long did it take you to drive there if you drove across Europe?
It took us a day and a half, 2 days.
A day and a half drive from merry old England, and you've got an unknown species of mystery canid.
It's ironical that the big, famous objects of study, like e.g., like Loch Ness Monster, like Bigfoot, the more famous it is, the least evidence there is. The more unknown it is, the more evidence there is. More unknown, I mean, like the reed wolf, or like, I don't know, I can't think off the top of my head, but the least popular, the more the evidence there is.
That, my dear boy, is one of the great paradoxes of cryptozoology.
Yeah.
Well, I think we're going to have to go out and change that as soon as we possibly can. Richard did his initial exploratory trip to Hungary 16 years ago, and in the last 16 years an awful lot has changed. Now, first of all, let's look at the position as it was then. The thing that fascinated me was that in the same area where once there had been a small, dark race of the grey wolf, called the reed wolf, there was now, or rather there was then, a smaller, darker race of the golden jackal, also known to the locals as the reed wolf. And I wanted to know, and still want to know, what is the evolutionary advantage, the biological imperative, which has caused these two strikingly similar morphs of what may be, but are not necessarily, two different species in the same place, a century or so apart. But it gets more complicated than that. There are several places in the world, most notably in Africa, both above and below the Sahara Desert, where populations of what were thought to be golden jackals have actually turned out to be wolves. And it does produce a rather interesting paradigm that the two species, or at least the nomenclature of the two species, are apparently interchangeable in some places. So I was initially wondering whether the reed wolves of 2009 and the reed wolves of 1913 were the same thing, same species, or whether there was something completely different. Whether they were wolves, whether they were jackals, or whether they were something else. And were they the same thing a century apart? But in the last 16 years, all of this has almost become of only purely academic interest, because both wolves and jackals have expanded their range across Europe to such an extent that there is now no doubt that there are both grey wolves and golden jackals living in the Agadatech National Park in northern Hungary. But are any of them smaller and darker than they would be expected to be? Are any of the jackals, which people would expect to be goldeny brown in colour, and no, that's not a strangler's joke, turning out to be much more red in colour? And if so, why? I think that it would still repay further investigation, although the saga of the reed wolf is far less important now, as both the target species are now found commonly in that area. It is a piece of living proof that one should really strike while the iron is hot and not just wait and see what happens. I'm going to be back on Saturday with another episode of On the Track. What am I talking about? Well, I believe that we have the inimitable Ian Squibbs talking about the peculiar carcass that was caught in trawling nets by a Japanese trawler with the unpronounceable name in 1977. But I may be wrong. So, whatever happens, I'll be seeing you.